Every year, we ask the same questions about Formula One engineering. Whose front wing is the fastest? Whose floor generates the most downforce? Whose power unit hits the hardest out of turn one? Those are the wrong questions. In 2026, the car that changed the championship wasn't won in a wind tunnel. It was won in a rulebook, in a single, 11-word sentence buried inside Formula One's technical regulations. Ferrari didn't just build a faster car. They found 4 words the FIA forgot to close off. And by the time anyone noticed, 6 other teams were already copying. To understand what Ferrari found, you have to understand what the FIA killed. For over a decade, F1 cars ran something called a beam wing, a small horizontal element tucked between the diffuser and the main rear wing. Its job was simple: bridge the gap, energize the airflow coming off the diffuser, and pull more air through the underfloor. More airflow through the diffuser means more downforce. More downforce means more grip. More grip means lap times. The beam wing was already killed once. Back in 2014, when Formula One introduced the V6 hybrid turbo, exhaust-blown diffusers were outlawed, and the beam wing lost its original purpose. For 2026, the FIA killed it a second time, and this time for good, they thought. New rules, simpler rear-end bodywork, no beam wing, full stop. The stated goal? Cut drag, reduce downforce, make these cars harder to drive, and close the door on a decade of aerodynamic complexity. One rule, one deletion, case closed. Except it wasn't. Somewhere inside Maranello, in the design office responsible for the SF26 rear end, Ferrari's engineers were reading the new regulations the way a lawyer reads a contract. Not for what it says, but for what it doesn't say. The beam wing was banned, fine, but the regulations still allowed something to exist in that box of space near the rear axle. Bodywork, within a tight tolerance, for a completely different stated purpose: routing hot exhaust safely away from the car. Ferrari looked at that tolerance, 10 millimeters from the center line of the rear axle, and they asked the question every great engineering team asks when a rule gets written. What's the widest possible interpretation of safely routing exhaust gas? And does it happen to look exactly like a wing? The answer was yes. By relocating the gearbox and differential further back in the car, Ferrari opened up just enough room to mount a small aerodynamic surface directly above the exhaust exit, inside the legal tolerance, doing a legal job on paper. But aerodynamically, it did almost exactly what the banned beam wing was used for. Exhaust gas energized the airflow. The airflow got pulled through the diffuser. Downforce went up. Internally, Ferrari gave it a name: FTM. Publicly, the paddock started calling it what it looked like: the exhaust wing. It first appeared in preseason testing in Bahrain, tucked into a corner of the car that nobody was supposed to be looking at, doing a job the rulebook said no longer existed. Here's the part that should terrify every team that didn't think of it first. Once one team finds a loophole like this, it isn't a secret for long. F1 cars are photographed from every angle, every session, by rival engineers whose entire job is reverse engineering exactly this kind of detail. The first team to run into it wasn't even a surprise. Haas buys its rear end, gearbox, suspension, the works, directly from Ferrari. So when Ferrari's solution showed up on the SF26, it was only a matter of time before it showed up, essentially off the shelf, on the Haas as well. Then came the 5-week gap between the Japanese Grand Prix and the next race. 5 weeks is a long time in modern F1 factory. By the time the paddock reassembled, 6 more teams, McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, Williams, Alpine, and Cadillac, had all built their own version of the same idea. Nobody broke a rule. That's what makes this dangerous. Every single one of these designs complied with the letter of the Article C392. The FIA's own technical inspectors signed off on them race weekend after race weekend. But everybody in the paddock knew exactly what was happening. A rule written to kill a piece of aerodynamic had been quietly rebuilt, team by team, until it was standard equipment on more than half the grid. Ferrari didn't just find a loophole, they handed the entire field a blueprint for how to find their own. The FIA doesn't like being out-engineered by its own rulebook, and by mid-season, it was obvious the exhaust wing wasn't simply curiosity anymore. It was a development race, and the governing body was 3 steps behind it. So they did what every governing bodies do when a loophole gets too big to ignore. They rewrote the regulation, not for 2026, where the wing stays completely legal for the rest of the season, but for 2027. The new rule is blunt, almost surgical. Article C237 draws an exclusion zone, a cylinder of forbidden space around the tailpipe and rear axle. That makes Ferrari's original geometry, and every copycat version of it, physically impossible to package. No more 10mm tolerance to exploit. No more gearbox repositioning trick. The loophole Ferrari found gets closed the same way the beam wing itself was killed, by regulation, not by anyone losing a protest. Which means, for one season, and one season only, Ferrari's idea gets to exist. A piece of aerodynamics the FIA explicitly tried to delete from Formula One, back on more than half the grid, completely legal, for exactly as long as it takes the FIA to notice, write it down, and shut the door. So who actually won the exhaust wing? Not Ferrari, not really. 6 other teams had the same solution running within 5 weeks. Not the FIA. They spent half the season chasing a design they'd already tried to outlaw once. The real winner is a mindset. The idea that in modern Formula One, the most valuable person in the building isn't always the aerodynamicist with the best CFD model. Sometimes it's the engineer who reads a 500-page rulebook cover to cover, looking not for the rules, but for the sentence the FIA forgot to finish. Every regulation reset in the sport promises the same thing: a clean slate, a level playing field, a fresh fight decided purely on pace. And every single time, somewhere in a design office, someone reads that clean slate and finds the one sentence it left open. In 2026, that sentence was 11 words long. It lived in a 10mm gap next to a tailpipe, and for the season, it was worth more than a wind tunnel.